Good morning, Pacific Utility. We're out here on job 5274. Right now we're bolting up the 12-inch domestic water tie-in that we were going to do in a couple weeks in the street. What Jose is doing right now is he has the wire wheel on the flange fittings. You want to make sure that you clean the iron fittings as much as possible so that it doesn't create any kind of leaks when you drop the gasket in and bolt it up. So that's what the first step you do with all ductile iron fittings that are flanged is you wire wheel and clean them first before anything. You make sure that you're wearing all your proper PPE, your gloves, your face mask, all the proper PPE. What could happen with this wire wheel is little fragments can come off and they could hit you. So you always want to make sure that they'll stick in you, that you have proper PPE on when doing this. You can put that in. This is called anti-seize that is on the bolts. It keeps the nuts from locking if you tighten it down too much. Drop that rubber in the go down. When putting in the bolts, you want the bolts always to go the same direction. So being that you can't fit this bolt aiming out that way, they're all going out of the T into the valve. Now when tightening, you want to do a star pattern to make sure you tighten around evenly. Keep going. Big gap on the bottom.
That's you're reassuring that you just did it right.
Okay, so the markings after the bolts are completely tight, we mark the bolts just so we know exactly which ones are tight as we go around. Just making sure that you don't forget any.
How much do you weigh?
180.
So it's 180 foot-pounds? Nice.
So that is how you properly bolt up. We're just doing one flange for right now, and we're gonna jump over to an MJ fitting. But after you bolt up, normally depending on the municipality, they will have you put either no oxide grease, bitch mastic, or brown primer, followed by wax tape and some kind of plastic fitting to prevent corrosion of the bolts over time. It all depends on the municipality, but that is how you properly bolt up a flange fitting. All right, now we are going to show you how to properly install an MJ gland. First thing you do is you make sure your end is nice and clear. You make sure you have your 1 foot mark. You put your gland on first and then your rubber. You want to put a little soap on the gasket just to make sure that it's sealed all the way in the rubber. It's easier for it to seal all the way in. Yeah, you want to make sure that you put pipe soap on the rubber so that it seats inside the fitting properly, and it's easier for you to push the rubber all the way down. When installing T-bolts, you always go out of the fitting. That's how the gland is meant to be put on. Some people will do it backwards, and that is not the proper way to install that.
So you never want the nut going down this way. You want it to come up that way.
Always comes out of the fittings.
Nice. I noticed also the pipe going in as flat. It wasn't beveled.
Yes, when you're using MJ fittings, whenever you're using MJ fitting, you do not bevel the pipe. It is just a plain end. Whenever you are putting ductile iron into a bell, it has to be beveled, or if you have push-on fittings or other kind of fittings, you do have to have beveled pipe. But when you're using MJ fittings, it is just a straight cut with no bevel. You double check your 1 foot mark to make sure it's all the way in. Perfect. And again, as you tighten this down, you're gonna wanna do the star pattern to make sure as you're tightening it down, there's no gaps and it tightens down evenly. Torque wrench. So every MJ kit that you get will have what you are supposed to torque it to. It'll have the size of the pipe and the T-bolt torque, how many pounds per square inch that you put on. So we have 12 inch, or this is 8-inch pipe, so we need to have 75 to 90 pounds of torque. Now when you put 75 to 90 pounds of torque on that, whichever you choose, it will click once you've reached the maximum torque. You don't want to over tighten the T-bolts. You don't want to stretch them or over tightening them and worried about damaging them later on down the road. So you hear the torque? And that is how you properly tighten up an MJ fitting. And again, the same requirements as a flange fitting. Your bolts, whatever the municipality, the city requires, bitch mastic, brown primer, wax tape, whatever. The mega lugs on ductile iron, the mega lugs, you can break off one at a time individually. It doesn't matter because the ductile iron cannot be penetrated, it cannot be moved. But when you are doing C900 on plastic, you have to make sure that you tighten these down evenly so that they evenly tighten down on the pipe. You don't want the pipe coming out oval, so you have to make sure that you tighten them down evenly.
And what's the purpose of that bolt?
That locks the clamp onto the pipe. Now right now we're not going to break these bolts off because we're going to reuse this. We're just showing you how to do it.
So normally that blue bolt will be broken completely off. Oh, there's one.
Yep.
So it's a shear bolt.
That's what it looks like.